Hey guys, so I had a hypothetical question. So let's say you go to the casino and you're going to play poker, and there's two cash games. So they're both 2-5 tables. So the first table is like the tightest table ever. Okay, so it's so tight that everyone's folding every single hand, no matter what. So even pre-flop, people will fold even pocket aces, right? So this table, you raise every hand, everyone folds, so you just keep, you collect the small, it's 2-5, so you collect the small blind and big blind every hand, so you're making $7 a hand, right? So you make $7 a hand, but the dealer still has to shuffle and deal the cards. So, but because, there's no flop turns or rivers, it's all pre-flop, it goes very fast. So let's just say you end up seeing, let's just say maybe let's say you end up seeing 50 hands an hour because, everyone's just folding pre-flop every hand. So you're making $7 a hand, you're seeing 50 hands an hour, so you're making $350 an hour. Then the other table is essentially the loosest table ever. So it's so loose that everyone at the table is going all in blind pre-flop on every single hand. So every single hand, every player at the table is just going all in pre-flop without even looking at their cards. So at that table, if you're at that table, you're allowed to fold. You don't have to go all in blind with them. So you can fold, and you can essentially just wait for premium hands to call with to get involved in 9-way all in pre-flops. So maybe you wait for hands like ace 10 suited, maybe even jack 10 suited, and then I guess you're probably also going to call with all pocket pairs like eights or higher, right? So anyways, you go all in with hands like eights, any really high suited cards, maybe ace king off. I don't know, I guess you'd have to look up into solvers to see how a hand like ace king off does in a 9-way all in pre. But yeah, I'm sure ace king off is a call as well, and probably ace queen off as well. But anyway, so let's say you're playing, let's say you're playing 7% of hands, and at that table, or you're going all in pre with 7% of hands, and at that table, because every hand is an all in pre, the dealer's forced to deal the flop, turn, and river. And after the first hand, once someone wins, now there's going to be or after a few hands, there's going to start being side pots and everything. So it takes pretty long, right? Every hand's taking pretty long. So let's say at this table, you're seeing maybe, let's say 15 hands an hour. So you're seeing 15 hands an hour at this table. And maybe you're calling once, like I said, 7% of hands, so you're calling once every 15 hands. So about once per hour, you get involved in a 9-way all in pre. So at this table, look, you can play for 10 hours, call with 10 hands, go 0 for 10, and you'll be down 5K, right? So obviously the variance is pretty high, but if you win one pot, you're immediately up, the pot will be 4,500, so you'd be immediately up 4K. But then after that, it'll get interesting, because if you have 4,500, maybe most people are going all in blind for 500, but there might be one or two players that also have a 4,500 stack as well now. Or maybe there'll be a few players, who knows. But my point is, it might change a little bit. So now, because there's one guy with a 4,500 stack, now you might be even playing tighter, right? So if someone's going all in blind for 4,500 at 2-5, and you can keep folding, maybe you're not going to call with hands like 10 jack suited or pocket eights. Maybe I'll wait for hands like pocket 10s are better, and the really highest cards like ace king, ace queen, king queen suited, whatever, king jack suited. So anyways, so that table, I don't know, so like I said, you're not playing that many hands. Maybe you're playing one every 15 hands or less even. And obviously the variance is really high, right? So you can have a session where you definitely lose 5K, assuming you go 0 for 10 on all ins, and you're playing, you're not tilting, you're still waiting for those premium hands. And then, but yeah, obviously you can run good, and like I said, you can make 4,500 the first time you win an all in, and then who knows how it goes from there. And it's costing you almost nothing to be at the table, right? It's costing you $7 every 9 hands. So just keep folding and waiting for premium hands. So anyway, so those are your two tables. So the first table, you're making $350 an hour because everyone's folding, you're making $7 a hand. And then at this table, it would be tough to figure out your hourly rate, considering also you are getting a lot less hands, right? At the first table, you're probably seeing 40 hands an hour, or at this table, maybe you're seeing 15. But it would be interesting to think, at which table would you have a higher hourly rate long term? The table where everyone's going all in blind every hand, or the table where everyone's folding 100% of hands pre-flop? And I thought it's an interesting question. It kind of makes you, to me, I've always kind of found poker is essentially somewhere in between that. So you're playing a 9-handed table, You know, often the correct strategy is to play pretty tight because, you know, your opponent's playing very loose. But I mean, sometimes it could be the opposite. Like I know there's been times where I've been in a tournament and I've been like on the bubble, and I had a big stack, and everyone had short stacks, and I was, you know, opening 100% of my hands. No matter what hand to hand, I would open pre-flop to try and steal the blinds because people were forced to play so tight to make the money. So it is interesting just to think about poker and all the different, I guess, the ways you essentially adjust your style depending on the table, especially nine-handed live. It's kind of interesting to see the different ways you can play it. And not only that, I mean, with live poker, because it's nine-handed, because there's no antes for cash tables, no antes, you really can just be patient and, like, you know, pick your spots, and you're never, and you can auto top as well. So, you know, essentially you can just always have a full buy-in. You can, you know, even if you fold for whatever 100 hands and lose, you know, whatever 30, whatever how many blinds that is, right? You can still add on and get your stack back to whatever the max buy-in is, and things like that. But yeah, so I don't know. It was a question I've always thought about: which table would you have a hourly rate at? I mean, I guess most poker pros technically would rather. I mean, probably just gonna choose the table that's the tightest table ever, because you can just guarantee, you know, $350 an hour at a 2-5, which is pretty awesome, right? If you can just steal the blinds on every single hand. But yeah, I am interested. I mean, I guess maybe we see in the comments, which table do you think you make more money at? The table where everyone folds 100% of hands pre-flop, or the table where everyone goes all in blind 100% of hands pre-flop? Anyways, so next thing I want to talk about is, oh yeah, so my son is really into like superheroes, everything, you know, Marvel and DC and all those superhero movies and all those things. And I was watching the movie with him, Batman and Robin from 1997, right? And I was thinking too, of all like the superhero movies I've watched with him, that movie I thought was by far the most like geared toward kids. So I feel like it's like the most like kids kind of oriented movie, just like the dialogue and just everything, right? And anyways, that's the movie with so Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Mr. Freeze, and Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy, and George Clooney plays Batman, and etc. But so anyway, so I watched this movie with my kid, and he loves it. And we rewatch it all. He wants to watch it all the time, so we rewatch it all the time. And he's 4 years old, and I kind of like watching it with him. I mean, I kind of like also that he's watching it because it is a very like kids movie, so you don't feel like there's anything too violent or there's no like bad words, things like that, right? Anyways, I thought the movie was pretty good. So I went to like, I guess I Googled it or whatever, just curious what was said about the movie and stuff. And it literally like is like considered, according to the critics, like one of the worst movies ever made, and it got like terrible on like Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it probably won some of those awards for like, you know, those Razzie Awards, like worst movie of the year. So I kind of thought that was interesting. I'm like, I understand. So if you have like a kid's movie, and like I know my son loves it, you know, he's a kid and he loves it, he wants to watch it over and over. And I was looking at some of the YouTube comments, and some of the YouTube comments about the movie said like, oh, great kids movie, I watched it all the time, it was my favorite movie as a kid. Like, I understand. So if you have a kid's movie and then kids love it, like, doesn't that make it a good movie? So I don't understand why there's like so much negative criticism about it, and why, like, I don't know, I've watched, I think, 2 movies with George Clooney where he was talking about how like that movie was terrible and he felt pretty dumb doing it. I'm like, I understand why. Like, I thought it was a good movie, and like, not only that, it's like kind of, I feel like it's done well. There's like a few themes in there and stuff, and then also, yeah, my son too is like often quoting lines, and I like too the way the movie was done. It kind of made me feel like I was watching like a real comic book movie, because a lot of the dialogue is just like, you know, it's a lot of one-liners, and it's very like, you know, it kind of feels like you're watching a comic book. Like, this is what it should feel like, and I don't know, I don't understand why it got such negative criticism, and why it's like one of these movies that's like so hated, everyone makes so much fun of it. I mean, one thing they were saying, people making fun of it because the costume, Batman's costume and Robin's costume have like nipples on it. So yeah, I guess that's kind of weird or funny. If you think of like a superhero with like nipples on the costume, yeah, it looks pretty dumb, I guess. So yeah, fine. That's one criticism I guess I could agree with, but the rest of the movie I thought was pretty good, and I thought Mr. Freeze was really cool in it. My son obviously loves Mr. Freeze in that movie. I thought Uma Thurman did a great job as Poison Ivy. I don't know, I thought for the most part it was a great movie. And I'm just surprised that that's another thing I keep wondering now with like Hollywood and everything, is I don't understand how movies get like judged, because sometimes I'll watch a movie, I think it's great, and then I look at the reviews, they're terrible. And sometimes I watch a movie, I think it's terrible, and look at the reviews and they're like amazing. So I'm like, I understand, are critics just like people who get like paid off, or is like Rotten Tomatoes just like a site where people just like pay it off and that's just like how it works? So anyways, I'm curious if anyone else agrees with me that like Batman and Robin from 1997 is like a great kids movie and it's just overall a good movie and a good time, and I'm surprised it has such negative reviews. Anyways, next random topic I wanted to address was the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, which I bet on I guess it was a few months ago. So I bet 1,500 on Mike Tyson, around almost plus 200 odds, and I was pretty confident with the bet. Essentially, too, with that fight, you know, you had Tyson in the pre-fight. Obviously, he's hyping it up, but he was really just like talking very confidently and making it seem really clear he was going to win. And so essentially, I just believed him. I'm like, here is this guy saying, I'm going to win, I'm going to win. I'm like, all right, I believe Mike Tyson. And he lost, and it was pretty one-sided, and it was pretty awful. So a few questions came to mind while watching that fight. Was a lot of people saying, well, it was rigged. And so I was trying to watch it, seeing if I thought it was rigged. So I don't think it was rigged in terms of a winner or a loser. But I definitely think it's possible that it was rigged in the sense that they were getting like paid per rounds. So like they were being discouraged. You know, Tyson was being discouraged from having a first round knockout, which is probably his, you know, most likely win scenario, like a first or second round knockout. So that was one thing I thought was possible. Another thing too, because I remember I heard something that there was like a big NFL ad on Netflix after the 5th round. So maybe there was like pressure for them to get past the 5th round so that the NFL could get their ad on Netflix that they paid a lot of money for it or something. So yeah, I thought maybe it could be rigged in that sense. The one thing that did really stand out to me though, because I rewatched the fight a few times, was Tyson's knee injury. So perfect example would be, so my favorite knockout of Mike Tyson's always been his knockout of Francois Botha. So if you go look up that knockout, it should be on YouTube in general. You can probably find those knockouts on YouTube. It's a pretty awesome knockout. But anyway, so what happens is it's the 5th round and Tyson just delivers that like perfect, you know, like 1-2 straight right punch where he just kind of steps into the straight right and just, you know, really kind of just like unleashes all his power right into Francois Botha and just completely knocks him out with that one punch, right? It's an awesome, really awesome punch. Yeah, I definitely recommend you guys look that up on YouTube. Tyson KO Francois Botha. But so my point is, when you deliver that straight right, like the 1-2, you really have to like step on your back foot. So you have to like plant your back foot and then throw the right hand and step forward, right? So if you did have a knee injury, it would make throwing that specific punch very hard or very painful, and it wouldn't work, right? Or whatever. He wouldn't have like the right leverage to deliver that punch. And if you watch the fight, the Tyson Jake Paul fight, that whole fight, I think he never threw the straight right hand. So that kind of bothers me because I'm like, all right, well, clearly he did have a knee injury, and then if he did have a knee injury, why did he seem so confident that he was going to win the fight? So that kind of bothers me. It makes me feel like, you know, it's manipulated or fooled, or, you know, essentially Tyson made a sucker out of me. But I don't know, maybe he did think he would still win anyways. And I don't know, like I said, if the fight wasn't rigged for a winner and a loser, and maybe it was like rigged a little bit in the sense that they gave Jake Paul a few advantages, like maybe the ring was big or the 2-minute rounds or the big gloves, I think I still assume Tyson, assuming both fighters had they weren't being paid to win or lose, I figured Tyson was still going to find a way to win the fight. But watching that fight too, I feel kind of dumb because seeing how big their gloves were and seeing how it just looked like it was so hard for them to hurt each other, I wish I had like spoke to someone who knew more about boxing, because I definitely would have just bet the over. Like watching that fight, 2-minute rounds with these big gloves on, it seems like there was no way there was going to be a knockout or even a knockdown, and the fight went the full distance. And I do kind of wish I bet, you know, I know the over, I think the over-under was 5.5, so I do wish I bet the over or even the fight to go the distance, and I would have made good money. I think the fight going the distance might have been plus 200 maybe, or plus 180 or something. So yeah, I do wish I bet the fight to go the distance. But I do think, you know, looking back on that fight, I feel like I made such a dumb bet, betting 1,500 on Tyson, you know, money line to win that fight. And, you know, whatever, it happens. Obviously, I felt like a fool, but every now and then you make, if you're trying to handicap, you're going to make a bad bet. But that does feel like a pretty dumb one I made, especially too because, you know, in general, when I do make bets, I know where the smart money and the dumb money is. And that fight, they were saying that the dumb money was on Tyson and the smart money was on Paul. So I do think, I feel kind of dumb for betting with the dumb money. But I have made bets before where essentially I bet on the dumb money and it's worked. Or if I think it's a good bet, it's a good bet. Trying to think of, I don't know, I know there's a lot of fights. Oh no, here's a good example of dumb money. I remember when Golden State played Cleveland in Game 7. I know all the smart money was on Golden State to win that Game 7, and Cleveland won. So whatever, there's an example of dumb money winning, or whatever. I don't know. I guess also probably I don't know, whatever. Every now and then, or maybe when the Giants, beat the Patriots in 2007, I'm sure the smart money was on New England to win that bet. So anyways, especially because they were like 14-point favorites. And yeah, it's usually underdogs don't pull off those kind of wins. But whatever. I mean, I do follow smart money and dumb money, and I often, pretty much almost always betting on the smart money. And whatever, like I said, I guess Tyson just got the best of me with all his hype and trash talk and whatever. And I do feel like I was a sucker for betting 1,500 on that. But going forward, I don't know what my approach is to handicapping at this point. I mean, look, I did pretty well a while ago where I made that video it's on YouTube, on my YouTube. I think it's my most watched video, where I said, hey, this is how I made 20K betting on boxing, and I review the 41 bets I made to get to, plus 20K. And look, essentially my bread and butter was betting on guys that were 2-1 and 3-1 favorites. And I kind of want to just do that going forward, hopefully get my confidence back, hopefully make some money this year. So I have been looking at the odds, and I do have, essentially I have 3 bets coming up for this year. I was thinking, so I don't have any money online right now. I mean, I could bet with a friend or something, but I was thinking I'm probably going to put $500 on Bet365 and bet on these 3 bets for the year. Maybe just go all in 3 times, and at the end of the year, hopefully that 500 will be, it'll be, assuming they're all minus 250 or something, I guess at the end of the year, that 500 should be, or I'm trying to think what it'd be at. So maybe it'd be 500 to win. Yeah, maybe by the end of the year it'll be at 1,500 if I were to go 3-0. So the first bet would be David Benavidez money line against Anthony Durrell. But I would have to look into that a little more, but that's probably what the first bet would be. The second bet would be Daniel Dubois money line against Joseph Parker. So the first fight, I think Benavidez is about minus 180. The second fight, I think Daniel Dubois is about minus 250. And the third fight, which I thought was going to be in May, but now it looks like it's going to be in September, would be Canelo money line against Terence Crawford. But that fight hasn't even been made yet. But I do look, if Terence Crawford's going to move all the way up from 154, where he didn't look that great, all the way to 168 to fight Canelo, then yeah, I'm assuming Canelo's a pretty great bet. I mean, but it would have to be at 168. I don't want Canelo to have to do any sort of catch weight or something that would worry me, and then I would not make the bet. But yeah, so assuming the fight's at 168, and then also the fight, I would like if the fight's in either Vegas or Texas, because I think those judges are always very pro Canelo. A fight 2, like Canelo versus Crawford, I think it's likely it goes the distance, so you kind of have to rely on the judges, but it's at 168. I feel like Canelo has to win that, and I think the judges would give it to Canelo. And then I also think there's a chance Canelo could knock him out. I was thinking too, I remember that fight, Gennady Golovkin against Kell Brook, where Kell Brook moved up, he moved up 2 weight classes to face Golovkin, and it was a competitive fight, and Brook was looking pretty good, but because, Gennady Golovkin was so much stronger and had so much more power, he, one of the punches in the early rounds broke Kell Brook's eye socket. So the coroner stopped the fight in the 6th round, I think, either the 5th or the 6th round. The coroner stopped the fight. But, so yeah, but it kind of reminds me of, because that fight reminds me, obviously Kell Brook's no Terence Crawford, but that whole idea kind of reminds me a little bit of this Canelo and Crawford fight. And yeah, Canelo at 168 and Crawford coming up, I think he could be a little, what's the word? A little shocked with how hard Canelo hits, right? Considering Crawford's career has been at mostly welterweight and lower. He hasn't dealt with any hard punches like Canelo. So yeah, I'm interested in that fight too. I don't know. I think if Canelo fights Crawford, assuming it's in Vegas and at 168, that I feel like should be a fight I bet really big on Canelo. I mean, I don't know how big I would bet, but I'll see. I do like the idea of making these 3 bets. So David Benavidez money line, Daniel Dubois money line, and then Canelo versus Crawford, Canelo money line. All right, I guess that's all for now. I don't think there's anything else I really want to talk about, just off to work. But, all right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. All right, have fun, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.